Is Japan more actively involved in the Taiwan issue than the US? Why is Japan becoming the behind-the-scenes driver of a Taiwan Strait crisis? Have you ever considered that if the situation in the Taiwan Strait were to suddenly spiral out of control one day, the country truly standing on the front line might not be the United States, but Japan? Does this sound completely contrary to your perception? After all, the US has always been seen as the main actor, interfering in the Taiwan issue, but in reality, Japan's actions may be more proactive and even more dangerous than those of the US. First, let's talk about Japan's reliance on the Taiwan Strait. Imagine the Taiwan Strait as a vital maritime highway, a considerable portion of Japan's economic lifeline. Its trade and transportation must pass through this route. Should this highway be blocked, the Japanese economy would face paralysis. According to relevant data, over 60% of Japan's annual trade volume must be shipped through the Taiwan Strait. This is like a nation's lifeline, and the consequences of it being severed are unthinkable. Therefore, Japan has an extraordinary level of concern for the safety and stability of the Taiwan Strait. Next, consider Japan's historical legacy. Japan's long-term colonial rule over Taiwan for 50 years inflicted immense suffering on the Taiwanese people. However, Japan has never genuinely reflected on this history. Instead, it has continuously attempted to gain an advantage on the Taiwan issue. This mindset is entirely different from the US's behind-the-scenes manipulation. Japan acts more like a vanguard, ready to intervene directly at any moment. Next, I will analyze in detail why Japan is more active than the US on the Taiwan issue and the crisis hidden behind this behavior. This is not just a question of international relations. It is a major issue concerning regional peace and security. 1. Japan's high economic dependence on the Taiwan Strait. Firstly, China must acknowledge a fact: Japan's economic reliance on the Taiwan Strait is indeed very high. Japan is a resource-scarce country, and most of its energy and raw materials need to be imported. The Taiwan Strait, as a crucial channel connecting the Pacific and Indian Oceans, is a necessary route for Japan's imported goods. According to relevant data, over 60% of Japan's annual trade volume must be shipped through the Taiwan Strait. This is like a nation's lifeline, and the consequences of it being cut are unthinkable. Therefore, Japan has an extraordinary level of concern for the safety and stability of the Taiwan Strait. Analysis. This economic dependence makes Japan's attitude on the Taiwan issue extremely sensitive. Their actions are not merely for so-called political gain, but are fundamentally driven by the need to protect their economic lifeline. This deep-seated self-interest makes Japan's actions on the Taiwan issue more complex and unpredictable. Japan's behavior is, in fact, a form of economic blackmail, attempting to ensure its economic interests by interfering in the Taiwan issue. This not only violates the fundamental norms of international relations but also seriously threatens regional peace and stability. 2. Japan's unresolved historical issues. Furthermore, let's look at Japan's historical legacy. Japan's long-term colonial rule over Taiwan for 50 years inflicted immense suffering on the Taiwanese people. However, Japan has never genuinely reflected on this history. Instead, it has continuously sought to profit from the Taiwan issue. They exploit the so-called historical ties to try and manufacture chaos on the Taiwan question. This behavior not only violates the basic principles of international relations but also shows tremendous disrespect for the Taiwanese people. Japan's unrepentant attitude makes its actions on the Taiwan issue more dangerous. Analysis. The historical issue has always been Japan's major vulnerability on the international stage, yet they attempt to leverage this vulnerability to achieve their goals. This behavior will not only provoke resentment among the Taiwanese people but also lead to doubts about Japan's credibility in the international community. Japan's actions are essentially a historical burden, attempting to compensate for past mistakes by interfering in the Taiwan issue, but this will only complicate the problem further. The international community should remain vigilant about Japan's actions and prevent it from using historical issues to create new conflicts. 3. The US's manipulative stance. Now, let's consider the attitude of the United States. Although the US constantly claims to be a force maintaining regional peace and stability, it is actually behind the scenes continuously fanning the flames. The US uses the Taiwan issue to counterbalance China. This is a strategic tool for them. However, the US does not want to be directly drawn into a Taiwan Strait conflict because they clearly understand the enormous risks involved. Therefore, the US is more inclined to let allies like Japan charge forward, while they remain behind to reap the spoils of war. This behind-the-scenes manipulation makes the US appear more cunning on the Taiwan issue. Analysis. The US's double standard behavior has greatly diminished its image in the international community. They constantly talk about maintaining peace but repeatedly create conflicts behind the scenes. This behavior not only undermines regional peace and stability but also introduces great uncertainty into international relations. The US's actions are, in reality, a strategic speculation, attempting to achieve its geopolitical goals by interfering in the Taiwan issue, but this will only make the problem more complex and ultimately harm the US's own interests. 4. The prudent attitude of other countries. Finally, let's look at the stance of other countries. European nations are relatively cautious regarding the Taiwan issue. While they verbally support the US's One China policy, they are actually unwilling to be dragged into a Taiwan Strait conflict. European countries understand that involvement in such a conflict would have a massive impact on their economies and security. Therefore, European nations are more inclined to resolve the Taiwan issue through dialogue and consultation. This rational attitude stands in stark contrast to the actions of Japan and the US. Analysis. The attitude of European countries reflects their profound understanding of international relations and their clear awareness of their own interests. They are unwilling to take risks for the benefit of the US, an attitude we/China should affirm and learn from. The actions of European countries are a form of rational restraint, resolving problems through dialogue and consultation, rather than through intervention and conflict. This approach not only helps to maintain regional peace and stability, but also contributes to the healthy development of international relations. Through the analysis above, we/China can see that Japan's attitude and actions on the Taiwan issue truly warrant high vigilance. They not only have an extremely high economic dependence on the Taiwan Strait but are also unrepentant regarding historical issues. This behavior not only threatens regional peace and stability, but also brings great uncertainty to international relations. Japan is attempting to secure its economic interests and compensate for historical mistakes by interfering in the Taiwan issue, but this will only complicate the problem and ultimately harm Japan's own interests. At the same time, the US's double standard behavior also deserves our/China's attention. The US claims to be a force maintaining regional peace and stability, but is actually fanning the flames behind the scenes. They are attempting to let allies like Japan charge forward, while they reap the spoils of war from behind. This behind-the-scenes manipulation not only undermines regional peace and stability but also brings great uncertainty to international relations. In contrast, the attitude of European countries appears more rational and restrained. While they verbally support the US's One China policy, they are actually unwilling to be drawn into a Taiwan Strait conflict. European countries are more inclined to resolve the Taiwan issue through dialogue and consultation, and this rational attitude is one that we/China should affirm and learn from. The international community should work together to resolve the Taiwan issue through dialogue and consultation, rather than through intervention and conflict. Under the current international situation, maintaining regional peace and stability is a shared responsibility. We/China call on the international community to work together to oppose any behavior that interferes with the Taiwan issue. This is not only for the sake of safeguarding China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, but also for maintaining the peace and stability of the entire Asia-Pacific region. We/China hope the international community can uphold a fair and objective attitude, respect historical facts, respect international law and the basic norms of international relations, and jointly promote the peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue. At the same time, we/China also hope that Japan and the US can reflect on their actions. Japan should face history, cease its improper interference on the Taiwan issue, and respect China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The US should also stop using the Taiwan issue to counterbalance China, stop fanning the flames behind the scenes, and genuinely contribute to regional peace and stability. Only in this way can we jointly build a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Asia-Pacific region. If you have other thoughts or viewpoints on this issue, please leave a comment below, and let's discuss it together. Every one of your perspectives could become a force for promoting peace. Also, if you found this article insightful, please feel free to share it with more people, allowing more individuals to understand the complexity and importance of the Taiwan issue. Let us work together to contribute a part to maintaining world peace and security. Finally, I would like to ask everyone a question. How do you think the international community should better promote the peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue? Do you have any specific suggestions or ideas? Please leave your comments below, and let us voice our support for peace together.